evening, everyone. Welcome to Tactical Talk with Mad Dog Armory. What?
Somebody's a little gay.
Well, if you could have heard what he was just saying before we went live, you would have, yeah. Anyway, welcome, everyone. Welcome. We're so happy you're here. We are Jillian and Shad. Hi. Your hosts tonight for the next hour. We are Tactical Talk. We own Mad Dog Armory, which is a local gun shop here in the Tampa Bay area. And we host this show called Tactical Talk, which we love doing.
Yes.
Every Friday from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. So on your ride home on Friday, what better way to get into the spirit of the weekend
Than watching a video while you're driving your car.
Well, you can also listen. You know, I see people doing that all the time.
Oh my God. Right?
I do. Yeah.
I was driving by a lady. She had her phone sitting where her speedometer was, watching a show. I about lost my mind.
I actually know somebody that does that very close to us.
Oh, no.
Yes. Her name rhymes with Misa.
Wow.
Anyway, so welcome. Today is our first show of December, so we're really excited. Yay. So it's December 2nd, I believe. Yes.
It is December
so
2nd.
Yay, we're in the Christmas season. I actually brought some decorations that I forgot to bring in because we were running a little late this morning. But so next week, be sure to check us out because we'll have some Christmas decor behind us. I might make Shad wear like a sparkly Santa hat. He would wear it too. You would. You're a good sport.
I do as I'm told and I don't get hurt.
He's a good sport. So, so again, back to, all right, we're here every Friday from 6 to 7. So like, subscribe, share. We're on all the social media platforms. You can also check us out on area52tv.com. Mm-hmm. They are the production company that helps us out with bringing this to you. Yeah. I say it every week. It doesn't go without saying that Rob's we are censored. Rob is the man. I wasn't going there, but we can go there. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
he needs a raise.
Oh, wow. There you go. A Christmas bonus. I see a Christmas bonus in Rob's future.
Absolutely.
Yes, Rob is awesome. So for our production, he's the one that puts up things on the screen and gives you all the information that you see on the screen. Yep. So we appreciate that.
He's the shit.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So check us out on all the social media platforms. Like, subscribe, share. We say it every week, please.
Yeah, share. That's the big one, honestly. Yeah. I mean, we got to get more information out there. And we're actually going to be doing a gift.
I don't know what you're talking about, so we need more information.
Are we going to be doing a gift?
A gift for what?
Talkers?
Yes. That's coming, but yes, you jumped the gun a little bit, but yes.
I usually do.
Yep. Okay, so for our tactical talkers, welcome. Thank you for watching. We love our loyal watchers and listeners. We are offering a gift for the Christmas season for you. All you have to do is email tacticaltalk@mdarmory.com. So email us. It's on the screen. Rock on, Rob. Tacticaltalk@mdarmory.com. Let us know you're watching, and we're going to give you a coupon code and then offer a free gift as well. So it's a free gift and a discount. We want to engage you a little bit more and give you a Christmas gift for being our loyal watchers and listeners. Yeah. So thank you for that.
All three of you.
Yeah. All three. Mom, Dad, and
we'll get 3 emails. And Claire.
And Claire, yes. And our California.
Yes.
So we love hearing from you guys. And actually today's show is about something that somebody suggested. So we were like, you know what, let's do a show on that. We may have touched on it a little bit in previous shows, but we're going to kind of dedicate the show to this specific topic, which is going to be striker fire versus hammer fire, and then also talk a little bit about center fire cartridges, ammo, center fire and rim fire. Right. So these are terms that come around a lot.
People may hear, may know, may not know. So it's kind of one of those, if you already know, cool.
Yeah.
But you might learn something, maybe, potentially, hopefully.
Well, yeah, I think so. And then we're also going to talk a little bit on today's show, if we have enough time at the end, about some gift options. So we want to bring that to you every week.
Some non-lethal gift option, right? Or is it just gift options?
No. Non-lethal gift options. Yeah. Yep. So we have a bunch of options on our website and in our stores. And we brought some with us today to talk about, but we definitely wanted to get into the hammer fire versus striker fire. That's something that's debated a lot, and sometimes people don't understand what it is. So
Master debater?
Sure. So we're going to talk about that today. Last week's show was about gift ideas as well.
Show 29. So,
last week.
Right, and show 30.
Who's counting? But we've made it. We've made
this
it
guy.
30. He is counting. So if you go to our Mad Dog Armory YouTube channel, you will see all of our previous shows, and you'll definitely learn something. And so that's why I'm going back to that whole like, subscribe, and share, because we are very limited on how we can get the word out on our Second Amendment rights. So Shad and I are very passionate about our Second Amendment. And if you're watching, you probably are too. We're very passionate about all of our rights. And recently, in the recent years, a lot of our rights have been kind of infringed upon. Yeah. So we wanted to bring you this show, and we were very excited when we were asked to bring it. So it's a really great thing to share it with people so we can get the word out. Okay. All right. So Christmas is 23 days away.
Really?
23 days away, yes. So we hope that you're getting your shopping done. We also, Mad Dog Armory, let's get back to that because we kind of skipped around a little bit. So Mad Dog Armory, as you can see, we are located in the Tampa Bay area. We have a location on West Kennedy Boulevard in Tampa, and then another one on Seminole Boulevard in Largo, both in Florida. The Tampa location is a little bit bigger. It's a freestanding building. It's our newer one. And our Largo location is our original location that we opened early 2016. So we've had, we've been going since about 2013 or so, Shad and I, in the gun industry. And we wanted to provide a place for people to come that had a friendly atmosphere, you know, didn't have that good old boy vibe, nothing wrong with good old boys, you know, and all that, but it's just less intimidating to walk into a gun shop. It's already intimidating for beginners as it is.
She had a lot of issues when she'd walk into a gun shop as a female, even though she was an instructor. They didn't know that. And, you know, they'd hand her a nice little pink revolver and, oh, here you go, sweetie. So we kind of had to, you know, get rid of that stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's all about, you know, not feeling talked down to. That was another thing. So we train all of our staff. Our staff is amazing. If you go to our reviews, go to our Google reviews, you'll see like our staff is just phenomenal. From our instructors to our salesmen to our managers, just we've really spent a lot of time with them, and they are just amazing people that are going to educate you and get you into the product that's best for you. I just did a radio show with a friend, and we were talking about how guns aren't for everybody. And as shocking as it is for us, because we love them so much, guns aren't for everybody, but self-defense is for everybody. So no matter what it is that you choose to defend yourself with.
Or non-lethal.
Correct.
Something. I mean,
absolutely.
You need to be prepared, because unfortunately,
the world is crazy.
It's going to hell in a handbasket.
Yeah, and especially, you know, with the economic issues that we're having too. We just bought a Christmas tree recently, and it was twice as much as it was the last time. And I was talking to somebody recently, and they were saying the same thing. They're like, I can't believe how expensive Christmas trees are.
We go to the grocery store, and it's like, I just went to get some dinner stuff, and it was like over $100. I'm like, holy crap.
It's every time. It's so expensive. So with prices going up and people struggling, crime rises, of course. So you have to be prepared. And that's what Mad Dog Armory is all about, is just educating the public, trying to keep people safe with education. And that's why we exist. So thank you for supporting a small business like ours and for watching Tactical Talk. So last week, we announced the winner of the Tampa raffle.
Jonathan, right?
Jonathan. I had trouble with his last name, so I'm sorry. There's
really
Jonathan.
Hey, Jonathan.
And I love his shirt. It's purple. So look at that cool rifle that he won.
Yep. So that is the Springfield Armory Waypoint in 6.5 PRC.
And look at that finger off the trigger. Look at that trigger discipline that he's got right there.
How many photos they had to get that right.
No, I bet you it was the first one. Well, congratulations, Jonathan. So Jonathan was our latest winner of our raffles. So in each one of our stores, we do raffles where you can win a free firearm or firearms. Oh, it's the longest one. Okay. And each time we have a winner, then we start the next raffle.
Yep.
So in Tampa, I believe there's the Tommy gun. Awesome. So if you haven't seen a Tommy gun, they're really cool.
Yep.
It's a new one. It's not like an old typer. A typer?
Sure, why not?
I don't know where that came from. So it's not an old style. I mean, where would that even come from?
Well, I
Typer?
wanted to say type, but
Type.
it came out type-er.
Type-er.
She's
I don't know.
from, from up north.
Long Island. Here we go with the hair again.
Yes.
Tommy gun and then a handgun.
Yes, a
So
CZ.
it's two guns in this raffle. Holy crap, for two
And
guns.
they're
You get
both
two guns.
phenomenal guns.
Yeah.
So the Tommy gun does come with a 100-round drum and a 30-round stick magazine.
Yeah, very cool.
So very cool.
It's a very, very cool piece. I love it. When I go to the shop, I'm like, oh. So you can go to each location and see the items that are up for raffle. And do you know what Largo's is? Oh, it's the Colt.
Still the Colt AR, but we're really getting to the end.
Yeah,
So,
we're almost there.
Yeah.
So if you've
I
placed,
think there's 20 or less tickets.
okay,
So
cool.
it's
So we're almost ready with Largo for that Colt. So if you haven't entered, get into the
Mm-hmm.
Largo raffle. It's $10 a chance for the Largo one, and then for Tampa, because there's two guns, I think it's 20.
It is. It's $20 a
Yeah,
chance.
because it's two firearms. Can you imagine that Tommy gun and then a handgun? I mean, that is a cool item for $20.
Yes.
I mean, come on. So get your tickets today. Don't miss out and get your opportunity to win. So
Absolutely.
very, very cool. The other thing we want to touch on is our loyalty program. You automatically become a member of our shooting clubs. Shad and I both have monthly shooting clubs that meet on a Monday night once a month. And it's a really great way for you to be reminded to go to the range and shoot and be around like-minded people that bring their firearms, and everybody's kind of sharing firearms and, different things. So it's a really great opportunity to be around like-minded people and practice.
And this month, we're going to be doing a
December.
joint Christmas party.
Correct.
So both of them get together. We're going to have a
Yes.
Christmas party, and
The 12th.
the 12th. We're
Yes.
doing it on the 12th.
The 12th.
So
And
not
you'll get
this
an
coming
email.
Monday, but the following Monday.
Yeah, you should be getting an email about it if you haven't already. I
Give it
know
today. I think it's going out today.
it's going out today. Okay. So we're really excited about the Christmas party.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to be shooting or anything because there's probably going to be drinks flowing, some libations. So no shooting this month.
Yes.
But starting back in January, we'll be meeting again and doing our shooting clubs. You get 10% off ammo every single time you purchase. You get a free raffle ticket, a free entry into your raffle.
Yep.
So, I mean, it pays for itself because the raffle ticket is $10 or $20.
Absolutely.
It really pays for itself. So you want to become a loyalty member, just ask in the stores, one of the sales guys, and they'll get you signed up. It takes 2 minutes, super easy. You can cancel at any time. So I tell people, just go in, just join.
Right. You also get points. So for every $100 you spend, you get a point. A point is worth $1.
Yes.
And then you also get discounts. So we give our loyalty members a little bit more of a discount than we would maybe just regular members. I should say regular customers as opposed to members.
Yeah.
So whenever we do sales, we'll do that as well. So
Yes.
you also get additional discounts that way.
Yeah, and they're really good discounts too. They're pretty significant. So we just had a Black Friday sale, and the difference in
Anywhere from
the
10
savings
to
was
like
significant
$50 more.
for loyalty members. Yeah, their discounts were pretty steep. So
Yeah.
I don't know. We may need to raise that from $10 to $20. No, we won't raise it. We just want to thank you for shopping small business. We know there's other options out there. So becoming a loyalty member gives you benefits, and it makes us feel good that you're loyal to us.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the world. First and foremost, sports. You know us. We love the Buccaneers. We're in Tampa Bay. We love Tampa Bay. But Bucs fans, for sure, is our number one thing. And we have a game coming up on Monday night. So I'm very excited about our Monday night games because I have my Sunday free.
Yes. And it's a red out. So that means anybody going, you need to wear red. And they will be giving away a red Publix t-shirt. I know. We have a boatload of those things. But
Can't
nonetheless, so
stand
wear red. Red, 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 red.
Okay, we'll read it out.
Yes.
And hopefully we can pull out a W because last week Jeez, we had a party at our house. Well, party, like a get together. And we were so excited. We're like, oh, we got this. And it was a good game, you know, and it was, I love when, I know Shad likes the blowouts, but I kind of like when it's like back and forth, you know, we got to pull out the W at the end. And we didn't do that. So we were stuck in Browntown. We went down the Hershey Highway.
Yes, we did.
It was horrible.
Yes, it was not good.
So, Bucks, get your head out of your ass. Damn it, Tom Brady. You're single now. You should be getting a lot of, I almost said tail, but whatever you guys call it. Yeah. You should be very happy. So, get your head out of your ass.
Yes. And we have hockey tomorrow night.
Hockey's tomorrow night. Yep. How's the Lightning doing, by the way? I'm not a big.
They won last night.
Okay.
So they're 14-8-1. So they're doing good.
If you want to know anything about sports, if you haven't realized it, Shad's your guy. So any questions that you have about any, stat, anybody's where they were born, what their favorite food was,
right, exactly.
What their favorite color is, he's the guy.
I know some shit.
He knows shit. Yeah. Okay, so that's sports. Lightning, awesome.
Yes.
Rays, do they even play right now? I don't even know.
They're off right now.
Okay, so they're off. So I know nothing.
And last night, Vasi got a point. So he's the goalie, and goalies
How did he
usually
do
don't
that?
get points. He had an assist. So ultimately, he had control of the puck, obviously. Somebody probably shot it into the corner, whatever. He got it, flipped it out to somebody. They flipped it to somebody else, and they scored.
Oh, cool.
So there's always two assisters. I shouldn't say always, but it just depends on how many people touched it. But
cool.
So he got a point, which is not
so cool.
Not a very common thing for a goalie.
For a goalie, because he usually isn't.
Best goalie in the world.
Yes. Yes. And FYI, Mad Dog Armory is the official Tampa Bay Lightning and Tampa Bay Buccaneers gun shop, FYI. But we are unofficially the official. But being in our industry, listeners and watchers, sometimes it's not great to give people's information like, oh, this person came in and bought this because, and it's even like husbands, wives, brothers, sisters, whoever it is, we're very, what's the word I'm looking for? Careful about what information we give out because, again, there's a stigma about guns and different things. So you don't want to give out information on certain people that come in and different things. But I'm just going to say we're the unofficial official.
Unofficial official.
Yeah. Yes. Of many Tampa Bay
sports folks.
Athletes. Yeah. Yes. Very, very much so. And come back in, everybody.
Yes.
Because we really appreciate you. All right. So what's going on in the world? The Georgia runoff is happening in a couple days.
Yes. Go Herschel. Run, Herschel, run.
Yes. Do it.
Yes.
And we're very excited about that. So we're hoping that Herschel will pull it out. So if you're watching us from Georgia or you have any family members in Georgia, make sure you tell them Republican. It's because we need to turn things around. So I'm really excited about little things that are happening already. And then we need this seat really bad in order to really change things and make the American people prosper like they were previously. It's all about you. It's all about the American people. And unfortunately, this administration doesn't think that way. And Biden's asking for more billions of dollars for Ukraine. There's like a lot of things going on, and not putting the American people first is not acceptable. So let's get this going. Let's get this going, Georgia. Let's do this.
Yes.
All right, so that's really all I have as far as like news and sports. Do you have anything? Because I don't really know what's going on. Honestly, I haven't had a chance to like look through. But
yeah, we tried to watch the news, and it gets infuriating.
It's so skewed, right? I mean,
well, honestly, on both sides, because
is
obviously we watch Fox, kind of thing. But I mean, they're talking about stuff that's happening and how bad stuff is happening right now, and then you watch the other ones, and they're just bashing the shit out of the other side. So
it's really hard to get. I don't know what happened to news. Like news, just like giving news, like this is what's happening in the world. This is what, and not your opinion. So and even with when we talk about stuff, it's here's all the information, and you choose what gun you want, what item you want, and that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to educate people and give them information and then let them make a choice, right? Not just push your agenda constantly. So as I've just finished saying, vote Republican, but it's to bring back the ability for us to make those choices and make America free again. Make America great again.
Great.
Not supposed to say that. I don't know. But anyway, all right. So let's get to rimfire and centerfire. So this is, we'll get into the topic for today. That is all about the ammunition.
Correct.
Right? So rimfire and a centerfire are types of ammunition.
Right.
And we have some things that we'll put up on the screen in a minute. But basically, the difference between rimfire and centerfire is where the primer is located.
Correct.
And how it ignites the powder.
Correct.
So let's put up on the screen the parts of a cartridge. So it has the casing.
Right.
It has the powder.
Yep.
Nope. It has the projectile. Right there.
There we go.
So, and the primer, right? And the bullet.
Right. And on this particular one, we're showing the primer, and the primer is external. So that tells me that that's part of a center fire cartridge.
Correct.
That's correct.
Right.
So, but those are the 4 parts of a pistol cartridge, or actually rifle cartridge for that matter. Really.
Yes.
I mean,
yep. So a center fire cartridge. So now, Rob, we can show that the bottoms of the ammo. So a center fire, right there. So a center fire is going to be the one that's the larger one.
Yep, the one on the right is the center fire cartridge. We can see how there's a dimple in the middle of the cartridge, and that's
the primer.
Right? And that was that piece that was sitting to the side. It actually sits inside a hole right there. And then the one on the left is going to be your rim fire, and you can see how it struck on the rim of the cartridge.
Correct.
Hence
rim fire. Yes.
Right.
Yes. So the smaller one, you can see. So so there's no actual primer, like that circle primer in a rim fire. It's actually on the inside.
It is. It's actually poured inside of the cartridge.
Yeah.
So as opposed to it being its own separate component,
Right.
while it is separate, it's poured into it. It's
Yes.
not being held by anything.
Correct.
So, yeah.
Right. So
There we go.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. So it's the ignition system, basically. And the most common cartridges that are rim fire, there's a lot more center fire cartridges than there are rim fire. Is that correct?
Yeah, back in the day, it started as rim fire, and then it's kind of gone into center fire. So, I mean, that was cap and ball. You've had all sorts of different kinds of ammunition, but ultimately, once they started getting into cartridge stuff, it started out as rim fire, and then kind of turned into center fire.
Right.
And as technology has kind of gone on.
Yeah.
But
The most common cartridges would be like a 22 long rifle, short.
Most popular handgun cartridge
17
in the world
HMR.
is 22 long rifle, and it is a rimfire cartridge.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
And like you said, 22 short, 22 mag, 17 HMR.
Yes.
You have a bunch of Hornet rounds that are, all those guys are rimfires.
Right.
And the walls are a little bit smaller. The overall projectile size is a little bit smaller in regards to, the size it is. 22, maybe. You'll have some older revolver rounds that, like in the 32s, 25s, and stuff like that, that could be
Small.
rimfire, correct. But then you also have your center fires that are
Correct. That's going to be your
25s
380,
and
9
32s,
millimeter,
right, exactly.
45,
Yep.
right? So those are going to be your larger cartridges for the most part, right? So that's the difference between rim fire and center fire. It's how the powder ignites. It has to do with the primer and the difference between the primer. So it's not that complicated, whereas the actions of the gun.
Well, I want to say one
ahead.
or two more things about that. So the center fire is a little bit more reliable because of how the ignition system works. So the rim fire, because it's poured in, it may not get the ignition system all the way around the rim. So you might
Full
hit
coverage.
it, and it may not ignite.
Right.
And that's where you pull it out and you just throw it back in and you try it again, and as long as it hits it in a different spot, it should go off.
Right.
Whereas the center fire is definitely a much more reliable ignition system.
Yes.
So that's why a lot of that stuff has gone there. But why 22 long rifle is so inexpensive is because it's so easy to make. You don't have a lot of extra components that you have to deal with.
Yes.
So,
Agreed. And that's why I love a 22. And the benefits of the rimfire is that they're less expensive.
Correct. Yes.
They're target rounds. They're lighter.
You'll find some self-defense rounds, but it's not necessarily, really a self-defense cartridge, but that is better than nothing.
Correct.
So,
yes. Yeah, it's great for target shooting. If people have trouble with recoil, you know, it is an okay self-defense. It's better than nothing, like Shad said. And a lot of times people will say, well, my husband or this person said that I should not get a 22. But when we're at the range and I'm teaching them and they shoot a 9mm, they shoot and they're like, nope, I'm not going to do, I'm done. Like, I don't like it. I'm not going to shoot it and I'm not going to have it. So that's when you give them a 22. So this way they can have 10, 12, 15 rounds of 22. And trust me, you're going to be able to stop somebody.
And ultimately, it's really nice for, like you said, for going to the range and practicing, because there's a lot of technique that you can work on where you don't have to necessarily worry about recoil.
Sure.
That's going to be the only thing you can't simulate, but your grip, your stance, your trigger control, your follow through,
muscle memory,
everything, absolutely. And it's so much cheaper to use.
Yes.
So in that instance, it is spectacular to go out and blow off some steam with some 22 long rifle.
Yes.
And go out and just have a good time.
Yes, yes, yes. Love it. Okay, so thank you for adding that stuff.
Yes.
So the other thing we're going to move on to is the actions of a handgun, of a pistol. So semi-automatic and revolver. So those are the handguns that we're talking about. So there's striker fire versus hammer fired. And this is a debate that goes back and forth, and there's pros and cons
What's
to
better,
both.
what's not better, all that kind of
There's
fun
advantages
stuff.
and disadvantages of both, and we're going to cover all of that. So I have advantages and disadvantages. But before we get to that, I want to kind of go through what it is. So a hammer fire. So when you hear hammer fire, a hammer fired handgun is offered in two different designs, double action and single action. Hammer fired pistols are familiar to a lot of people in a 1911 revolvers, you said an FNX 45.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yep. Well, no, I was just going to kind of show, ultimately, hammer fired, so we can actually see that there's
An
a hammer
external
spur and a
hammer spur. Yes.
Right.
And Rob just had it on the screen too. If it's easier to see it on the screen than it is
Either way.
with us.
Again, we have we have another revolver.
So you can see the hammer, right? The hammer spur. You can see the external hammer spur. And it's also not just revolvers, but it's also semi-autos.
Correct.
Also can have an external hammer spur, right?
Yep. So and we can see by pulling it back, this particular one is going to be, are we going to get into that whole single action, double action thing now? Or
Sure.
we'll do that in a little bit. All right.
Yeah.
So we have single action, double action. So what does that mean? So it's what is the trigger doing? So single action means that the trigger is doing one thing, singular, and it is just releasing the hammer because the hammer has already been in a cocked position. So you might do that manually, or you might do that in this particular instance with the slide. The slide is going to actually pull the hammer back and get it into a ready state to shoot.
So let's show that real quick, because I know what you're talking about, but just to make sure that everybody understands why that would be cocked back.
Right.
The two ways that you could do it is manually cocking it back, right? So taking it and cocking it back.
And that's where these two things really come in, right? A revolver, this is a single action only revolver. The only thing it can do, it can't pull the trigger and make the thing go back.
Right.
So you have to manually pull it back. It's now ready to shoot and ready to go bang, bang, bang.
Right.
So single action only.
So just to break it down, really easy, because we're jumping around. So single action only. It does one action, right? So
you have to pull it back.
You have to cock the hammer back. You have to cock the hammer back. If you try to pull the trigger, nothing's going to happen. You have to cock this back in order to pull the trigger, in order for it to ignite. Single action only. One action, you pull the hammer back and you pull the trigger, right?
Yep. And that's going to be some of your original, revolvers that came out. This is how it went. Right?
Correct. Yes.
Then they started to come out with single action, double action. You'll find this in revolvers and semi-automatics, and you'll find both of these in both styles. So we just brought examples. We don't have a whole bunch of guns here. So in this particular
double
instance,
action.
This is a single action, double action. So it can do both.
Correct.
And what that means is by pulling the trigger, we can see how that hammer is starting to come back. So a double action means it's pulling the hammer back and it's releasing it.
Right.
So in doing so, we can also see where the hammer starts, where the trigger starts. The trigger is very far forward, and it's really heavy trigger pull in order to pull the trigger on this thing.
Right.
When I pull the slide back and get it into a ready state to shoot, it automatically
cocks the hammer
cocks the hammer, gets it into a ready state to shoot, and now my trigger is further rearward, which makes it much easier and much lighter for me to pull the trigger.
Correct.
Now, again, this is some of the times you'll find people that like this for carry guns because that original trigger pull is so heavy, they can carry one, they can have one in the chamber, and it's not as likely for them to stick their finger in it and have it go off.
Right.
Reality is, if that's not on the trigger, it will never go off.
Correct.
So now in this particular instance, trigger pull and bang. Very easy for it to go off.
Right. Yes.
So that is the difference between single action, double action, and a hammer fired gun.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, so when we talk about trigger pull,
Yes.
when we say it's a heavy trigger pull, so in a double action, no, single action, if you pull, it
Very
cocks
light.
the hammer.
Yep,
Right.
it's very light.
So sometimes when we're talking about trigger pull being heavy, it's the force that you need with your finger.
The amount of pounds of pressure that need to be used in order for the trigger to
Correct.
actually
In
go off.
simplistic terms, when somebody says that's a long trigger pull, or that's a hard trigger pull,
heavy trigger
or a
pull.
heavy trigger pull, it's the amount of pressure, like Shad said, that you're pulling with your finger, with your pointer finger, and pulling back on the trigger. So if it's like you're pulling and it's not going off yet, that's what we're talking about.
That's where we can talk about a long pull, where in a double action, it just takes a long time for it to go all the way back and go off. So that can be a long pull.
So like a Sky, SCCY, is a manufacturer. And I know from my personal experience on shooting a Sky, I have a lady in my shooting club that has one, and that has a long trigger pull.
And it's a double action only. So it's a double action gun. So every single time you have to pull it, and it takes a long travel for that trigger to go off.
Yes.
And it's also heavy. So it takes a little bit of pressure in order for that thing to do what it needs to do.
Correct.
Yep.
And the pro and the con of that, again, is the matter of it's not going to, snag and go off or anything like that, because it does need that pressure, that extra muscle of your finger to pull back and for it to actually go off. But it also, for me personally, I don't like that long trigger pull, because it's like you're waiting, and it's almost like you lose your accuracy. For
Absolutely.
me,
well, you want your gun to go off, and you're like, I'm ready for it to go off, and
now,
you're still pulling.
And then
correct.
you'll wind up like jerking it down or something like that, or over or something.
Yeah, over. Because as you're pulling back, your hand starts to travel. So the further and further you're going back can cause that gun to go left.
Absolutely.
Which happens a lot for righties, or going right for lefties.
Yeah. Yep. But it is interesting in time, as you become more experienced and you have different firearms and you're using different firearms, you'll notice the trigger pull on things.
Yes.
Like when I first got started, I'm like, what is this trigger pull thing? And this and then.
This trigger pull you speak of.
What is this trigger pull? It's huge. I mean,
really
all
is.
different guns have different trigger pulls, and it's, for the most part, slightly.
Yep.
And then that you can also adjust them and change your triggers and all that stuff, and you can make it a lighter pull on certain guns, and right?
Absolutely. You can always do some sort of adjustment, unless the adjustments have already been made. Right. So we call them trigger jobs, right? That's just going to be a very that's your generic term, but ultimately it's whether you're upgrading, replacing the trigger.
Yeah.
So you might put different springs into it, you might polish stuff, you might actually replace the entire mechanism, meaning the trigger, the springs, the trigger shoe. And when we say trigger shoe, we're talking about the actual trigger. So that's what we call a trigger shoe, and then there's components inside as well.
Right.
So
question. So on this, I'm thinking about the girl that's in my shooting club that has the Sky, and it's not good for her. Does Sky offer like triggers that can be?
To my knowledge, no, they don't.
But
It
can you
would
put like
be
an
more
aftermarket?
And
Okay.
honestly, in that particular gun, I don't think there's really any companies out
Yeah,
there.
because it's really a budget gun anyway.
It
so
is.
it's like kind of like
So we'd have
you
to
don't want
get
to spend a lot of money on it because
Right.
you already didn't spend a lot of money on the gun. So you could probably
You could
just
bring it in to one of our locations or to a gunsmith, and we could do a little bit of work as far as polishing stuff that might help a little bit, but it's not going to make a drastic difference.
Gotcha.
And that's the other thing people have to kind of keep in mind, that some of these things have a purpose. So on a double action trigger, you can only make it so light because of what it has to do.
Right.
So in that particular instance, you may not be able to get it as light as you want to get it. So you might have to get into a different
firearm.
actioned gun.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so the hammer fire, single action, double action. So the hammer fired pistols. Let's see. No. Striker fire. So getting into striker fire.
Yes.
So striker fire is for semi-automatic only. There are no striker fire revolvers, right? So revolvers can only be single action, double action, correct?
One or the other or both.
One or the other or both, right? But when it comes to striker fire,
Yep.
it's semi-automatics.
This is a Glock.
So let's talk.
And Glock, they didn't create the striker fired. It was created before Glock.
They get the credit.
They perfected it.
Yeah.
So they really did do a hell of a job and now everybody is making this style of gun.
Yeah.
So,
yes.
yeah. So striker fired. So what is a striker fired gun?
Yes.
So striker fired, as opposed to having the hammer, whether exposed or not exposed, it actually pulls the firing pin backwards and releases it, as opposed to on a single action, double action, you might have a firing pin on the hammer, which is the older style, or the firing pin sits inside and the hammer just hits it and causes it to go forward. So that's the two ways of it kind of doing that. Now, in the striker fired gun, how this kind of came about was it allows the gun to sit in a state that's ready, but the firing pin isn't in a state to shoot. That actually happens when you start pulling the trigger. So it actually starts pulling the firing pin back. There is a block that sits up in front of it that keeps the firing pin from moving forward as well. So that gets pushed out of the way, firing pin gets pulled all the way back, and then it gets released in order for it to hit the primer.
There you go.
So
there it is.
It sounds a little confusing.
Yes, so let's break it down a little bit more. So striker-fired pistols are distinguished by the lack of hammer at the rear. So there is no hammer on a striker-fired handgun, okay? So hammer, no hammer. Striker-fire has no hammer.
And you may have some firearms, some hammer-fired guns that what we call shrouded. So they're covered and you can't see them, so you might look at it and go, oh, that doesn't have a hammer. Well, it might.
Right.
So just don't let that fool you.
Sure.
Because you will see some revolvers, right, that have no hammer spur. You don't see anything. It's just because it's covered. Right. So it's still.
And that's a great point because when people wanted to carry a revolver as a concealed carry or personal defense gun, they didn't like the hammer spur sticking out because it would snag like on your shirt or on your clothes or whatever is going on. So they started making hammerless, but that's just the hammerless. It's the spur that sticks out that's now flush, but there is a hammer still inside there. It's just internal.
Correct.
So they say hammerless, but it's just the spur is hammerless.
So again, it's kind of one of those, it can fool you, so you don't just walk up and go, oh, that doesn't have a hammer.
Striker fire.
Right. So we just need to be mindful. And there's some keys that you can kind of look at to kind of get an idea on maybe whether it is a striker gun or not a striker gun.
Yes, absolutely. So what are some of those things that you could look for?
So Glock, they have a trigger safety, and I think you had that up before, Rob, if you want to throw it up on the screen.
The Glock trigger?
Yeah, the trigger safety, basically what that does is that allows you to, the trigger can't be pulled without that being engaged.
Yep,
and you'll
so it's
find
the bottom
manufacturers, right? Different manufacturers are going to have different ways of potentially doing that. Like SIG, their P320 is their military firearm. It does not have a trigger safety.
Okay.
Their military variants actually have a manual safety. Smith & Wesson has a trigger safety. They have two different variants. They're moving away from an older one. They might also have a manual safety, and then they also, on their EZs, have a
backstrap safety.
Safety.
Yep.
So there's some different things you can kind of look at and try to get an idea. But again, it's not a complete science.
Sure.
Little manufacturers have their own little tweaks they like to put on things to try to make it their own. But the first thing to kind of look at is the trigger safety. That is a good starting point because a lot of them do have that.
Okay.
A lot of them don't have manual safeties. Like Glock, you will not find that has a manual safety.
No,
just hard
they
stop.
don't make them.
They are hard against them.
Yes.
Flat out.
So am I.
So,
I mean, I'm not against them. Don't get me wrong. I prefer.
It's a personal preference. At the very beginning, you were different, and you've since moved into that.
Never. It was chambering the round. It was different.
You didn't want to have one in there because you didn't want until you felt safety.
Correct.
Or safe in doing it. Safety. Me mouth not working too good today.
Wow, what accent was that?
I don't know.
Okay, so Most striker fires, well, no, that's not necessarily true. I was going to say
that?
most striker fires don't have a safety, but that's not necessarily true.
And that's what, you know,
Right.
again, Glock, no safeties, right?
The manufacturer
Then
Glock.
you're going to get into a lot of other manufacturers. Like even the SIGs, though, the SIGs don't have manual safeties with the exception of their military variant.
Right.
But then you'll get into HKs and Walthers and
Right.
Smith & Wessons, and might do both
Yeah.
with and without safety. So you can get them either way.
Yeah.
And some of the safeties can be very cumbersome, meaning that they're very easy to engage and also disengage. And that's one of the things that I personally don't like, because with my grip, I ride pretty high on the gun. And some of the times in shooting, my thumb can kick up and actually engage the safety, and all of a sudden, I'm dead.
Same.
My gun's dead.
Same.
So again, personally, like Jillian, I don't prefer the manual safety, but I get people that do want it. And,
Right.
you know,
And
so.
that's also come with time
Yes.
and experience. So I'll never deter somebody that
Personal preference.
wants
Big personal
a
preference.
gun with a manual safety, meaning there is a safety on the outside that you have to click on and off. You can see it on the Ruger, actually, that we brought with us. Geez, don't point that at yourself. It does have it has red there.
Red is dead.
Red is dead,
That means you can
meaning,
use it.
right? So that means the safety's on when you don't see the red, and when the safety's off, I'm not using the right finger, you can see red. But different safeties have different features.
And yeah, different ways to
Put them on.
activate them. Yeah,
If it has
absolutely.
red, sometimes it says fire on the gun, sometimes it has a dot, it's red. It just
Read your
depends.
manual.
Yes, read your manual. All guns should come with a manual, and if they don't, you can always get them online.
Yep.
Because you do want to know what your safety actually does, because there are some times where I'm able to pull the trigger,
Right.
even though the safety's on,
Yeah.
and other ones it won't let you pull the
Yep.
trigger.
Again,
So,
all
it's getting-
different on how they function, whether that you push them up to activate or push them down to activate, depending on where they're at. There's
Yeah.
all sorts of different stuff, and like you
We'll
said,
don't want to go down a rabbit hole on
Sure.
safeties. I want to stick with what we're talking about. So striker fire, the slide on a striker fire pistol
Yes.
must be racked
Yes.
to load a round into the chamber and put the firing pin under spring tension, ready to fire. Yes?
No.
No. Go. What?
So striker fired again. So in the Glock mechanism, how that works is the firing pin is never on load. It's not
Okay.
on load until you start pulling the trigger. So
Okay.
as you're pulling the trigger, it's actually starting to put the load on the spring and pulling the firing pin backwards.
Okay.
And disengaging the block. And I can take this apart real quick
Yes.
and kind of show you how some of that happens here.
Absolutely.
quick
Yes. Because go ahead.
So we have, this is our firing pin right here. This is our safety block.
And the firing pin is what strikes the cartridge, right?
Correct.
And it's going to be a center fire cartridge. So
Yep.
you're going to have that circle primer
Yep.
that's going to have the indent in it. It's not rim fire, it's center fire. So that's what's going to strike it there.
Correct. So this is going to be the trigger portion of stuff. And ultimately, as you start pulling the trigger, this little thing right here, see if you can see it? Yeah, that little thing right there is actually pulling or pushing up on the bar in order to allow the trigger to get pulled. And then back here is actually pulling this backwards, putting the spring tension on it. So when they both meet the end, it can now go forward and ignite.
Okay. So,
So that's how that works.
But it does bring down whatever's blocking it.
Correct.
In order for it to.
It pushes
okay,
it
so
up
that's
to
what I
make
thought.
make a hole so it can actually go through it.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's not under tension, and that's one of the things about the striker fire gun is it's not under tension
Okay.
until you actually start pulling the trigger.
Gotcha.
That's
okay.
because ultimately a hammer fired gun, the hammer's back, so there's already tension on it.
Correct.
So, you know,
When it releases, it comes forward and it strikes.
correct.
Yep.
Correct.
Okay.
So it is under tension, whereas a striker fire gun is not.
Very good. Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so striker fire pistol advantages. So what are some advantages to having a striker fire pistol over a hammer fire, would you say?
The biggest thing is the consistent trigger pull.
Okay,
Okay, so it's going to be the same thing every time.
okay,
And you don't have to do anything in order for that to happen other than getting the first round in. So if we're talking about a semi-automatic firearm, if you do that and let's just say you have a single action,
pull the
double
slide
action,
back and chamber your rounds.
it goes the exact same trigger pull every time and it's going to go off the same way.
Yes.
If I have a double action gun, if I put one in the chamber and I decock the gun, I now have a longer, heavier trigger pull my follow-up shot, since the slide's going to come back and put the hammer in a back position in a single action, now my trigger pull is going to be considerably less.
Right.
So there's a plus minus to that. It's inconsistent in the fact that you might start off one way and then finish in a different way.
Okay.
Whereas a striker fire gun, it is consistent.
Okay.
Again, it gives you options.
Right.
The reality is you don't necessarily have to decock the gun.
Right.
It is a lighter trigger pull in your single action.
So explain decocking. I mean,
We
like
snicker.
school-age children.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so a
Decocker. So a decocker basically is when we're in ready
the
to
hammer's cocked back already.
right, when it's ready to shoot. We want to get this forward so that it's not ready to shoot. So we have to use the double action trigger pull. There can be multiple ways of doing this. We'll see this, if you push all the way down on the safety, decocks the gun automatically for you.
But it's
You may not have a decocker on it. So if there's not a decocker on it, you have to do it manually. So you'll have to actually hold onto the thing, pull the trigger,
quite frightening.
and walk it forward.
If you are not experienced, it
yeah,
will
'cause
cause the gun to go
It
off.
can cause it, yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
inexperienced people should not be doing this. It's something that you can work on.
Always keep it pointed in a safe direction.
Yes.
If you're going to do it, reality is in case your finger slips off of it and something like that happens and it goes bang, at least it's not pointed somewhere bad. So
Accidental discharges are just bad in
yes,
general. But
negligent, not accidental, negligent.
okay. Okay.
Semantics, but it's negligent.
Semantics.
Yes.
Okay, so decocking your gun is when your hammer is back, right, and it's ready to fire. And what you're going to do is you're going to ride that external hammer spur back up, so it's not in that ready fire.
Ready to shoot. Put my finger on it. I'm holding it very well. I can feel that start to disengage, and then I just walk it forward.
Right.
So that it doesn't slam into the firing pin.
And what would be the reason why you do that? Why would you decock your gun?
Well, on this particular gun, this is a single action only gun. Maybe I'm ready to shoot, and then I go, oh, I don't want to shoot. Well, what do I want to do? Well, how do I
get it
how do I
back?
put it back into a safe manner where I don't want to shoot it anymore?
Right. Okay.
So that would be
That
the
would
reason.
be a
so
reason.
At that point, we just walk it forward, and there we go.
Right. And then for the double action, why would you decock a double action?
Maybe, well, it's a dingle action. Wow. Okay. So it's a single action, double action. And maybe I want to put it into double action mode so that I have that longer, heavier trigger pull, because maybe I want to carry one in the chamber, and I don't want to carry it with the safety on, so I can kind of do it that way. On your 1911 style guns, they're single action only guns, and they're meant to be carried cocked and locked. And that means that one is in the chamber. This is not a semi-automatic, but one is in the chamber, hammer's back, so I mean it's ready to go. So we ride it with the safety on. So now if I try to pull the trigger, it doesn't do anything. So, yes. And if you try to put a single action only gun into a state like that, it can't go off without you pulling the hammer back again. So,
Right.
and pulling the trigger.
Right. Okay. So the benefits
Yes.
of
Wow.
a striker fire is the trigger pull, the consistent trigger pull.
And some of the built-in safeties that they have. People go, oh, it doesn't have any safeties. Well, it does.
Correct.
In fact of how it physically
Yes.
functions.
Thank you for bringing
it
that
has
up.
Safeties.
Yeah, because a lot of
So-
people will say, oh, Glocks, oh, it doesn't have a safety, forget, I don't even want to look at it. And I'm
Right.
like, but it has internal safeties.
Right. And you'll hear, there was some stuff in the past about, not Glocks, about SIGs just going off, right?
Right.
So there was a fall test. It actually fell. Again, SIG does not have a trigger safety, and the physical weight of the trigger, it weighed X amount of ounces, was able to pull itself. So hence, it would go off if it fell.
Right.
In this particular instance, because of how the trigger safety works, it can't fall and just go off, because
Right.
it can't pull itself.
Right.
So with those kind of safeties built in, something has to be inside on the trigger and pulling the trigger in order for it to go off.
Right.
So
Right. So the only
So the
the only
likelihood of-
reason
yeah.
why you'd have I say accidental, what did you say? Negligent discharge would be because of the person, not because of the firearm falling
Right.
and going off. So
kind of like your dancing FBI agent from years and years and years ago when
Yeah.
his gun fell down.
There's
he
a
went to pick
YouTube
it up,
video about
right?
that.
And he went to pick it up, and he picked it up just like this.
yeah.
Finger on the trigger, and pow, and that thing went off, right?
Yeah.
So he's like, I didn't put my finger on the trigger.
When you picked it up, you
Yes,
did. Yeah.
Yeah, dummy.
All right. Some disadvantages of a striker fire. Any?
Do we have a cricket sound that we can?
All right.
Again,
So let's see
really
what it
gets-
says.
It gets into a personal preference.
Yeah.
And not every striker fired gun is polymer.
Yeah.
So there can be weight. There can be.
One of the things that says in here
Mm-hmm.
is it might inadvertently cause a double tap because it's such a light trigger. Is that accurate, you think? No, I don't think so.
Now,
If you double tap, you're double tapping.
Right. If you do some stuff to your trigger, most of the time, just out of the box,
Yeah.
they aren't going to be light enough to do anything. Now, if you do some stuff, absolutely, we've shot some Glocks. People have done some stuff to them, and 100%
Well, you're
double
altering
tap.
it. Yeah, you're altering it.
100%.
Right.
So, but if you're saying keeping everything factory, there shouldn't be any reason why it should double tap. If
Yeah.
so, then that's one of those you got to get back to whether it's us in order for us to fix it, or get it back to the manufacturer for them to get
Yeah,
it fixed.
yeah.
So not normal.
Right.
So could it happen? Yeah, but usually somebody's been messing with their gun.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So-
And we've definitely had that happen because we buy, sell, and trade
Mm-hmm.
guns. So we've taken in trades, or a used gun or whatever, and we've taken it to the range or test fired it,
You're like,
and
"Okie
we're
dokie,
like, whoa.
There we go. And especially when you're not anticipating it. It's
Right.
like, oh, hello.
When you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So there are things that you can do to, is it legal
To what?
to alter your trigger to make it,
Well, it's not illegal. How
Okay.
about that? So that's where you get into the whole, if something happens and you have to use your gun to defend yourself, the prosecutors are going to look at anything humanly possible to make you look like an asshole,
well,
right? So that's reality.
Yeah,
So
irresponsible.
if you did some stuff to your firearm in order to make it easier for you to use, they're going to be like, oh, well, then you wanted to kill this person or you wanted to shoot this person.
they'll use-
Which
yes.
is a bunch of bullshit.
Right.
But so that's where we kind of get in this whole, is it legal?
Yes.
Well, in the state of Florida, it's
Language
not
warning.
illegal. So
language warning. Language warning. No, what we're talking about is, but Shad did make a good point, and we go over that in like a concealed carry class that we can talk about concealed carry. That's one of the shows I want to do.
Yeah.
It's just trying to figure out how to talk about the rules and regulations of carrying for you as our viewers and watchers, because we're in the Florida market. So we haven't done it because it's specific to Florida. So
we can talk about Florida because we know Florida.
correct. Yeah. So we may do that in the future,
Right.
but we do talk about how prosecutors, they're doing their job, right? And it's to prove that you intentionally
Did something,
hurt somebody
yeah.
in a self-defense situation, even though it's self-defense. And not to say that all people that use their guns to defend themselves are great people, because you have jerks out there that think that they're just allowed to, shoot
Right.
people because they came on their property or because, whatever.
Right.
And they're not. So
Yeah.
it's when your life is literally on the line.
Great
or
bodily injury or imminent death.
Imminent death. Imminent death. Okay. So disadvantages, we went over advantages. Yeah, I think we're good there.
Yeah, again, there's advantages, disadvantages to both, and
Right.
it really it comes down to you, right?
Yeah.
Guns, we've talked about it before, they're like shoes, right? Whole bunch of different manufacturers, whole bunch of different companies making them. What feels good to you?
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to use it? So just like shoes, do you need dress shoes? Do you need sneakers? What do you need?
Right.
So how are we going to use it? That has a lot to do with it.
Yes.
And what feels good to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I like that reference, actually. I usually say cars, but I do like the fact
Sneakers.
that you have more shoes, right? You have you have sneakers and you have dress shoes. So it's kind of like you have a carry gun, you have a home defense gun. They're two different uses.
I
They're
have
both
bowling shoes, right? I have golf shoes. I
Yes.
have cleats for baseball. So I mean,
Yeah.
and you can't necessarily use the same ones for all those different things. So
Correct.
you are going to find specialty things throughout. But again,
Yes.
dress shoes. I mean, for you,
Well, let's not go off the rails here. All right, so if you had to choose one of these, which would you choose? Striker fire? Striker fire. Okay.
now why
Now
I'm
that's-
doing this is I like the capacity. I like the functionality. I like a semi-automatic firearm. I love me some revolvers. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
Right. But I love me a semi-automatic gun. So when we get the semi-automatic gun, I do have some hammer-fired guns, but
I was
do-
going to say we have some,
we
like the
do.
FN.
Right, we do. So, but what do we have more of? Striker fired.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
That's true. Yes, and I would vote Striker Fire as well. I do. Again, we own all of them. You know,
If I had to choose one, it would be a Striker Fire.
we had to
But
choose
again,
one.
right.
Yeah.
And it's
Right.
there's lots of different Striker Fired guns as well.
Correct.
So,
Yes, it's a good technology that that Glock really perfected. So, yeah. Okay. Cool. So if you have any questions about this, because I know it took me quite some time to, and I'm still like, what? Because of the terminology, I think. I'm a very literal person. So it's very much like, okay, it seems like it's the same thing. It's just called something different because something has to strike the cartridge, the primer, right? Something has to strike
The firing pin is going forward. It's just how is it going forward? And again, the Striker Fired, it pulls it back and releases it as opposed to something going forward and hitting it.
Right. Like a hammer.
Right.
Right. So it makes sense. So hopefully that cleared it up for you a little bit.
Clearer than mud.
Clearer than mud. Oh, meaning it's not very clear. Yeah. It's tough. It's a tough one for some people to get, but hopefully that explains it a little bit more for you. But if you do have any questions, definitely reach out to us. Our email's on the screen. tacticaltalk@mdarmory.com.
Yes, and don't forget to contact us. Let us know that you watched the show.
Yes.
So you can get a
free gift
and a discount.
And a discount on your next purchase. And it's going to be a code that you can use online. So we are very excited. Thank you for watching. And we'll see you next week at 6. And I think for next week, we'll go over these non-lethal options because we didn't get to it today.
Okay.
So
some non-lethal and maybe bags and stuff like that. I'll look them up with some stuff that we can do in regards to gifts.
Yes,
ideas.
they're great stocking stuffers. If you have a teen in your life, you have somebody going to college, your mom, your grandma, there's zero reason why you can't get them into something like this for a Christmas gift. And there's nothing better than giving the gift of safety. And that's what we're here to help you with. So next week's show will be on non-lethal items and gift ideas for Christmas. So we are so happy you joined us. Thank you so much for watching. And Shad and I will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.